Hi, and welcome to Ancient and Medieval Art History. I'm Rachel Dorn, I'm your instructor, and you'll learn a little bit more about me later on in this lesson. But right now I want to talk to you about why we're here. So I'm going to reduce myself here. Ancient and Medieval Art History. And as you know, this class is entirely online. We're going to be talking about Western art. And when we say Western art, we mean art in the Western tradition. So we're looking at the Mediterranean, we're looking at Europe, mostly, a little bit down into Africa, a little bit into Asia, and in the prehistoric chapter, we'll spend a little bit more time in a few other places. But for the most part, we're going to be here. We're going to be in Europe, we're going to be around the Mediterranean. Prehistory is what we're going to cover in chapter 1, which will actually be week 2. And that will cover mostly Europe and Mesopotamia, like I said, a little bit farther afield. Ancient art, which would be through the Roman Empire, and, oops, I'm going to get myself out of the way of the Roman Empire there. So the Roman Empire actually spans all around the Mediterranean, all the way up into England. Get to talk about lots of that. And then medieval art is what comes next, what comes after that. And there again, we'll be mostly in Europe. We'll be in this part of Europe, down to Spain, maybe a teensy bit past Spain, and then in what was the Byzantine Empire. All right? So these maps you'll see later in the quarter, that's where we'll be spending our time. Now, what is art history? You're going to read a little bit more about art history, difference between art history and art appreciation in your introduction chapter, and I'm going to leave some of that discussion to you. But to begin with, we're talking about not just, oh, this artwork looks nice, but why was it made? Who made it? When was it made? And how do we know when it was made? Where was it made? And for what place? For it, that might be, for what is some art is traded, right? So it's made in one place and moves to another place. But also it might be made for a church or for a home or for a public space. The nude woman from Willendorf, which we'll talk about in chapter 1, was traded. It was made to be traded. And so what we know about it is influenced by how it was used or how it was meant to be used. Now, the other thing is, how do we know all this information? Your first chapter, the introduction chapter, is going to go into some explanation of how we know these things, how art historians know the age of various artworks, some of which, these two here and everything we talk about in chapter 1, will be stuff that we know about even though there's nothing written about it. A little bit later, we get history. We start writing things down. And so we have something like this where we have some supporting information that tells us about who made it, what the imagery is, why they've included that particular imagery or even that particular arrangement of that imagery. So we're going to get to answer a lot of these questions about who made it, what is it, how was it used, when was it made, where was it made, but also where was it made for, why? Why did they make this thing? Why did they want big rocks in a circle? What was important about that? And then, of course, both how it was made and how it was used. All of this stuff that I'm talking about here integrates with not just the art itself, but how the culture interpreted or felt about the work, how the culture influenced what sort of artwork was made. The figures we see in this vase painting and in this small sculpture are very different. I mean, yes, it's a man and a woman, but these are very different figures in a lot of other ways, and very different from how we paint many figures today or sculpt many figures today in art being made in our time. And so our cultural influences, what people were doing and thinking and valuing at this time versus this time, really influences what that art ends up looking like. And that's the neat, interesting question and answer and discussion that we get into this quarter. So I hope you are excited. I am excited. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. One note, I have tried to make this quarter, this is new for me, I've tried to make this quarter sort of a fun, interactive, almost like a game. We're going on a journey. We have quests. And I'm trying to make it feel like we're going and discovering and doing rather than sitting in front of our computers. So let me know what you think about that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the lesson. Thanks.